Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the morning meeting. Sean, Tim, and I are going to walk you through the day and then talk about it and then take your questions, hear your comments. If you'd like to participate and you're here on the two-way platform, not on YouTube, but if you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. We'd love to get a lot of you in today to ask your questions, comments. Hold on 1 minute. I have a technical issue I'll have to correct quickly, which is I'm hearing myself back. So this is kind of the first slow day we've had. Think about a week ago, we were in the midst of the aftermath of the Republican convention, and there's less activity, at least right now, than there's been. President Biden is at the White House with some closed events, then goes to Camp David. The First Lady's in Paris for the Olympics. The vice president has no public events. The New York Times says she is down receiving briefing, or she's dead getting briefings, but the New York Times says she's doing a conference call with her National Finance Committee. The second gentleman, as far as I know, has no events today. He's going to Wisconsin tomorrow. President Trump is at Mar-a-Lago, where he's meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu today. Tomorrow, he and J.D. Vance have a rally in Minnesota. The only one of the principals, besides the First Lady in Paris, who I think is doing anything public today, although there could be a Trump Netanyahu photo op, Sean may know, is J.D. Vance, who's appearing on Megyn Kelly's show at noon. And that is, I believe, the only event a media interview he's doing today, as I understand it. So that is where he'll respond to some of the questions that have been swirling around regarding some of his past comments, a topic we've talked about quite a bit here, in which some of you think we've talked about too much. Today, we're going to talk about two things primarily. One is this question of Harris momentum getting the Obama's endorsement this morning, and the question of what could cause her to lose a news cycle anytime soon. And then second, we're going to talk about beef steaks and some of our latest thinking about who Kamala Harris may end up picking. So, Sean, start with you. If you were sitting in Mar-a-Lago with Team Trump, would you be waiting for Harris to make a mistake or try to disrupt her and win a news cycle by doing something?
I think they go hand in hand. So in other words, I think what she responds to first that creates some kind of issue. So if they can get her to respond to the border issues, her Minnesota Freedom Fund, if they can talk about her comment from 18 to 24-year-olds calling them stupid, they've got to find something that she'll respond to and create a further issue. So I don't think it's hoping that she just does something organically. I think they need to have a forcing mechanism to create that moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think the concern from Democrats always, for better or for worse, for Trump is that he takes up a lot of oxygen. And if the question is who's going to force what next, I think it's something probably coming from Trump, and it may be, intentionally designed by him or something that he creates in the news cycle as well. I just think there's so much goodwill and energy, particularly among the Democratic base,
Slash the media.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a totally different story now, right? And I think that newness of that story is going to carry forward for a couple of weeks here. And I actually think the Obama rollout was very smart this morning. It is Friday. I think everybody's kind of like, we could use a slow news day. That's going to capture attention for a while, and there's no opportunity for error there.
Hey, Mark, I won't stay on my soapbox for long, but I will just tell you, the scrubbing and defense of Kamala's record by the legacy media is a level of patheticness that I have never seen in 30 years of doing campaigns. I mean, we've always cried about liberal bias on the right, but between the Minnesota Freedom Fund, the border, the scrubbing of her congressional record, the ranking of it, the Wikipedia page, I'm literally aghast at how this is. I mean, it is unbelievable. Not just the coverage, the defense of it. Right, watching these clips over and over again of media outlets that are accusing the right of calling her a border czar, with them calling her a border czar. The Minnesota Freedom Fund, where she literally is on tape praising it, and then you're seeing these media outlets saying that was a complete ridiculous claim by the right. That it is gaslighting to a degree that I've never seen by the media. It's one thing to be biased; it's another thing to be running to the defense of her like they are.
So I don't disagree, although I think some of the specifics I don't entirely agree with you on, but I certainly agree with you directionally. Is there anything the Trump campaign can do about this?
Well, I think, look, and I don't know if Tim was exactly But I think that what they need to do is elevate something to the point where it forces her to, it's sort of like you take it to a level that forces her to respond, hoping that she footfalls on it. Um, and then that becomes something, but they've got to do something that takes one of these issues, crime, the border, things that people actually care about, right? I mean, that's why I was saying before, I don't think the process is going to do it, but I think if they can find one of these things where her leftist record, whether it's been in the from when she was running or during the Biden Harris administration, and force her to respond in a way that gives a new, fresh answer, would be the way to do that.
I think that's right. I also think the difficulty here for the media and maybe for the right is, look, yeah, people can look back at her 2019 primary run and say, oh, she ran so far to the left. Prior to that, though, as an AG, the problem she was dealing with in that primary is, wait a second, you were a little bit to the right. And then in the Biden administration, it was more middle of the road. So I think the difficulty is, yeah, like how do you find one of those in those eras, a moment that the
Right.
media is going to latch onto and be like, this is essentially you. This essentializes you and your positions. And so it forces the Trump campaign, to Sean's point, to have to do something.
Well, I would just say, I mean, look, we've spent a lot of time talking about JD's record. If you're going to make reaching out to young people an issue, and the clip that you have is, let me tell you about this group of 18 to 24-year-olds. They're stupid. That might be something to really sort of push hard on. I don't think it's something you want to hang your hat on campaign wise, but it's something that I think causes a moment for them to pause and have to respond to on a key constituency. And if we've seen anything over the last 48 hours, this entire campaign on the left is a series of niche coalitions, loosely stitched together.
So let's review. The Democrats lost every news cycle from the debate for 3 weeks. They lost every news cycle, including the news cycle where someone tried to kill President Trump. They lost every news cycle. And now Harris has won 5 news cycles in a row. She's won 5 days in a row. And I don't think she's going to lose anything this weekend. I can't imagine the circumstances. So we'll keep track. 5 in a row. Let's see if she can get 3 weeks. Veep stakes. Okay. So I always thought that if Biden didn't run, that there'd be a coalescing around Shapiro, because I thought they'd try to force the vice president out. And the reason is I thought that the Clinton, Obama, Biden all have a very high opinion of him, as do I. I think he's a great politician. All the other candidates, potential running mates, have teams around them that want them to be picked for the most part. But no team's being as aggressive as the Shapiro team. They're doing it in kind of subtle ways. There's also no one who's there where there's more opposition. There's some opposition to him as well. But I recommend you something I didn't put in the essential reads because I hadn't seen it before I sent the newsletter. But there's a Politico roundtable with Robbie Mook and Patty Solis Doyle and Stuart Stevens talking about sort of the current dynamics in the Harris campaign. They're all very bullish on how it's going and her chances, and they're all very bullish on Shapiro. And Robbie Mook says pretty compellingly, if the guy can get you a half point in Pennsylvania, take him, because Pennsylvania is probably the whole race. He's not a perfect vice presidential candidate. He's not a perfect politician, but he's a really talented guy. And if you study his career, he was a Hill staffer. I tend to think politicians elected who have been Hill staffers tend to be pretty good. And he worked for Bob Torricelli. So if you're familiar with Bob Torricelli, you know that probably he's going to be a very good candidate. Very good candidate. I do want to, though, show you one thing, which is the most vivid reminder I've seen of late about why I always say, even if you've been elected governor, even if you've been elected senator, even if you've been elected vice president, you're not truly vetted until you're on a national ticket. So this is the governor of North Carolina at a press conference yesterday, and I'll give away the ending. His own state press corps, until yesterday, didn't know how to pronounce his name. Watch this.
Phillips kept saying your name more like Cupper. And I don't know that I can you pronounce your name like it might have been pronounced in Nash County 30 years ago by family and friends?
Cooper.
Say it again?
Cooper. Say foot.
Foot?
Cooper. Put the sound in between the C and the P. We're hooked on phonics today, all right? That's what we're
Have we been mispronouncing your name the whole time you've been
look, only a very small percentage of people say Cooper. Most people say Cooper. And when I went
All right, you get the point.
I feel like this is a Cheney versus a Cheney thing.
It is. I was going to say it's exactly like that. But again, this guy's been the governor of the state. He's run twice. People didn't know how to say his name. I'm telling you, Shapiro thinks he's been vetted. He's not. If he's picked, it's going to be some issues. But I do think it's going to be not Cupper. It's going to be Shapiro rather. And I think that the party will rally around him and they'll have a plan to deal with some of the vulnerabilities. Tim, what do you think? Where do you think we stand with the deep states?
Yeah, I mean that's where I started when this conversation began was Shapiro and then Cupper, which I've been saying wrong also the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Cupper, not Cooper. Cupper.
I think so. Again, I've said like Waltz recently, but I think he's just someone who's elevated his profile very well during this process. But yeah, Shapiro makes a lot of sense. I think what's interesting about this process though is because it's so condensed, we haven't really had like oppo dumps on these guys. We've seen some like around the edges.
A little bit. There's a little bit on Shapiro.
A little bit, right? But because it's such a small time period, I don't think as much. But yeah, he is a good bet.
Sean,
I talked to a fairly prominent Democrat last night and said to him, "Hey, if what are your concerns about how he would play in Michigan?" And he goes, "Where are they going to vote? Who are they going? They going to vote for your guy? No." So for that reason, I'm staying with Shapiro.
Yeah. The one little boomlet I'm continuing to hear is Mayor Pete, but I'm just skeptical of that. So let's all start thinking about what it means to keep a kosher naval observatory, at least as a possibility. All right, let's open it up to you all. If I ask you to please, if I bring you into the spotlight, please unmute, question or comment. Not that into speeches, but say what you wish. And Simha, go ahead, please. Thank you for joining.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you so much for this this platform. I am enjoying it immensely. It's really what I've been looking for the longest time. So I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you. What do you like about it?
I like the fact that there are people who are able to completely disagree and have a civil discussion about it, which is an art that seems lost, unfortunately, in our current climate. So I'm truly grateful to you for that, and I'm happy that I came across 2A. I wanted to pick up on the little bit on the discussion last night, which bleeds in today as well about the vice presidency. Just for way of background, I'm a lifelong Republican, also a never Trumper. I rode in Bloomberg in 2016. I voted for Biden in 2020, and I am now switching to an almost never Trumper and plan very hesitantly, kicking and screaming to vote for Trump in 2024. And the Veep stakes matter to me. JD Vance I viewed it just as a terrible, unforced error. And regardless of what he himself stands for or said or didn't say, it just demonstrated a lack of judgment that really
because of what? Sorry to interrupt. What about him? What about
well,
him?
because there was no logical reason to pick him. He doesn't add a swing state. He doesn't add a demographic. He doesn't add anything to the ticket other than to bolster Trump's Trumpiness. And I think that was already accounted for. On the flip side, although I don't intend to vote for Kamala Harris, her vice president selection will at least mute some of my hesitation towards her. And I think all the names that have been floated are really impressive and would, vice presidents tend not to be all that important, but in this particular campaign, again, I tend to vote for Trump despite who he is and despite his vice president pick. And I don't intend to vote for Harris despite who she picks, but in both cases, it definitely dampens me or impacts me. And I think that it will play a significant role in the race. And I would not be surprised if JD Vance is not on the ticket by the time the Republicans get to, by the time we get to election day. The mechanism, whether Trump will ask him to leave or he'll quit or whatever the case may be, I think just to reclaim the news cycle, aside from everything else, I can see that happening.
Sean, do you think there's any chance under any circumstances President Trump would do that? A lot of people are talking about it.
I would just say this with Donald Trump. If you ever say, is there any chance, that sentence says it all. Yes, there's always a chance. So I would never say no, but I would also say that, I think you would have to have the most extreme circumstance to see any of that happen.
Okay. Tim, you want to ask
Yes.
or ask anything?
Is
or
there
say anything?
is there someone who in the VP mix you put at the top, or is it just they're all pretty good for the Democratic side?
I'm particularly taken with Kelly. He was sort of my own hunch pick from the beginning. I think he makes the most sense. I'm extremely impressed with him. Josh Shapiro is an impressive person. I think that John King was saying the quiet part out loud when he said that nominating a Jewish person in the current climate of the Democratic Party might not be all that palatable. I find him a very, very acceptable on the merits as well. So there's really all. I mean, on the Republican side, I was deeply disappointed that Marco Rubio was not selected. But at least all the names that have been floated out on the Democratic side are all people that are to me, very palatable, reasonable, respectable,
Yeah.
good.
So if she picked one of these people you find impressive, given your previous never Trump status, why are you voting for Trump?
A couple of reasons.
Hey, just take a win.
No, I wasn't arguing. I'm just
No,
curious.
I know you can. I can.
Just briefly, like what's causing you to vote for someone you said you'd never vote for?
I think that the Democratic Party has just veered too far to the left, a little bit far into Looney Town, and that's not to say that my own party is not well into Looney Town itself. But I think the Republicans have become a little bit too loony stylistically, and the Democrats have become a little bit too loony substantively. So that's my chief concern.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the main reason.
Great. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your
Thank
nice
you.
words about the platform. Please spread the word.
I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Rebecca, please go ahead. Thanks for joining.
Hey, I am 100% behind Trump, and I think that JD Vance was a great pick. I think he doesn't have too many skeletons in his closet, so they start digging, looking for something. And this isn't over with yet. Mama will be on the carpet before this is over with. I mean, they will drag up everything they can to drag him through the mud because they got nothing on him. The kid is a picture of the American dream. So, they got to find something. And Kamala Harris, the left side, the left news media is going after, is erasing her whole background. So what has she done for 3.5 years? If she isn't the border czar and she hasn't done what has she been doing for 3.5 years? Riding on a plane back and forth and, going to Europe. I mean, she gave that speech yesterday and I thought it was very presidential. She took over Biden's role and she stood up there and, where was Biden yesterday? I mean, I just think,
Rebecca, do you think?
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Do you think the Democrats have a better chance to win now with Harris at the top of the ticket than they did with Biden?
Oh no, I think this is just like they're saying a honeymoon phase. They said that most of the people that have rallied behind her are Democrats that said they were not voting for Biden. And now they've come back to the party. So all you're basically doing, she hasn't gathered any, midstream people. And then when they did that interview with all those women in Wisconsin, every single one of them said, I'm not voting for her. She's stupid. So, I mean, I just think this too will, I mean, there's so many Democrats that are saying, I did not vote for her. I voted for Biden. Why is she running? So. Anyway.
Tim, question for Rebecca, Tim?
No, I mean, I guess I will take that. You thought she looked presidential. That's a win from someone who's like staunchly backing Trump. Respect your opinion. So I think that's great. And like, look, she's improved a bunch among groups. Definitely, some of them are the Democratic coalition, Black voters, Latino voters, young voters. But on some of the polling too, and it to be seen, we've got to wait a little bit. We've seen the advantage that Trump has amongst independents cut quite a bit as well. And look, JD Vance, he has an inspiring biography in the sense that he sold a book, tons and tons of copies. But I think the cat lady thing is just indicative of how he talks and has spoken. And there's a lot there in addition to some of the venture capital stuff in his background. So, but look, also Mima,
I would just say
biggest line of applause at the RNC, and we'll see if they put Mima on the trail.
They'll get her.
Tim, I look, I get that that's what everyone's hanging their hat on the left. I will say if we want to go down that road, believe me, the Kamala comments and word salads over the last several years are voluminous. And I think that, you know, as I said, the attack on 18 to 24-year-olds, calling them stupid, which is a key demographic, is going to come, you know, all of these things. So I get it that the left has one quote from JD. He will address it today on Meghan's show. I think that could turn a slow news day into a busy news day. I expect him to handle it very well. I went back and watched actually the clip of him when he was giving the speech where he first made this sort of analogy. And it's a very different context when you see the speech as opposed to the clip he made on Tucker, and how he handles that today on Meghan. With, I think, probably a little bit more runway, in the sense that I think she's going to give him the chance, will be very telling.
I agree. Rebecca, thank you. John, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mark. This is great. I want to echo what so many others have said, that this is a wonderful platform. I like that it gets me out of my silo. My silo is not self-imposed, but I live in a particular area of Long Island where, well, it's a heavy silo, and it leans very Democratic. So I value hearing this. Two brief questions. You know, why the downgrade in Kelly stock, which you and I and most others have been very high on? Why is he eclipsing? And the other thing is, do you think there'll be sort of a vigorous counter reaction, particularly in the organized Jewish community today, about Harris's post-Netanyahu remarks, which, quite frankly, were seen by many in my community as not being as forthright on the issue of Hamas terrorism in terms of leading what the focus was? Thank you.
Yeah. So on the second question, I've heard from a lot of people. Look, she and her team clearly worked through a statement that was an attempt to thread the needle. And I actually think if you take it on the merits of the tone and the substance of what she said, she was trying to balance all equities. And I think she leaned further into a pro-Israel position than I think she's been in terms of tone and substance. But as you point out, it's still not enough for some members of the American Jewish community. So it's obviously a really hard thing. I think she does start with a clean slate compared to President Biden, who had the same problem. So I'm not going to say people who criticize what she said as being insufficiently pro-Israel. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying those people are wrong. And I know I've heard from several people today with that point of view. I don't know how she could have done it any better, given her own beliefs and given the complex equities substantively and politically. I don't know how she could have done it any better, but I recognize that she fell short for some, probably. Well, I know she fell short for some on both sides, because I've heard criticisms of it on both sides. And that's the nature of the beast when you're talking about something so complicated in the Democratic Party.
Right. I get what she's doing. I get what she's doing.
Yeah.
One quick point. I think, you know, again, we noted or crossed our fingers that this would be a slow news day. The Meghan interview is one thing. The second is that Netanyahu is going to meet with Trump, and it'll be interesting to see how Trump handles that based on his, you know, perceived grievances post how Netanyahu handled the election last time, what he says afterwards. And so is it a personal thing? Is it a policy statement that Trump makes afterwards? But I think that's another opportunity for news to pop up today.
Sean, do you know? I tried to find out, but I never heard back. Are they doing a photo op together? Is the president going to talk afterwards? Do you know?
I don't know, and frankly, I don't think it matters until it happens. I mean, this goes back to your question a while ago. Like, it's Trump, so he could literally, if he feels as though the meeting is good, he'll say, "Let's go out to the cameras and say something." If it doesn't turn out well, he'll say, "Thanks for visiting. There's the exit. Stop by the gift store on the way out."
Yeah, John. The answer to your first question, I'll say just briefly. I think the bettors were not totally gung ho on going forward with Kelly, and I think that's played at least a partial role in the decision. Or not the decision, but the sense I have that she's moved off of.
One point that I think constantly gets overlooked in this, and I think some of it came up with Vance. I've made this point before. It was noted in one of the stories about Harris, and I think correctly so, that there has to be, for people who have had this role. Obviously, Trump's had a vice president. Kamala Harris has been a vice president. I think there's a sense of, I need a partner. I need somebody that I know that I can count on, that I've got chemistry with, that my spouse likes their spouse. I mean, those are the intangibles that actually matter in a relationship like this. So I don't know that had anything to do with it, but I'm just saying that sometimes it's not just the vetters or the policy. It's a level of chemistry that I think exists between the two partners and principals.
Tim, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. It's about a good partnership. It's about allowing her to lead. As we've been having this conversation, I'm looking up the claim, Sean, since you brought it up a couple times about Harris calling young people stupid, and it is stripped of some context, is what I will say. She is. It is. She is saying in that moment that when I was at Howard University, we were in college, we were 18 to 24. We were called college kids, and then the rest of the clip plays. So she's not really
So
calling.
context matters, I guess, now.
I'm just saying, but look, this, to your point earlier, we were talking about this. There's a lot of this stuff that I think Democrats are, it's going to percolate up. We're going to have to push back on.
I get it. And I would just say that that's the point, is that in all of these clips, context matters. This is politics. Perception matters. How it's perceived, how it's driven out there, it makes the world a difference. So I don't disagree with you, but I think that, this is the big leagues now. And I think that both sides are going to have a lot of clips on everybody.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, let me say a couple things before we close, or a few things. One is grateful to people making comments about this platform and what it's about. We're hearing from many of you, and we appreciate it, because we're trying to do a very specific thing here. We're trying to have civil conversations where all sides are represented, and people are here to learn rather than to fight or criticize or insult. Got a great email from Sean. Thanks for putting people together that have very different political views. It has helped me see the people I don't agree with as people and not just hateful. That's what we're going for here. And so if you like that, you want to help us succeed, tell all your friends. We need to grow this as quick as we can for all the obvious reasons. So thank you for that. Policy, right? This morning meeting is a very specific program. This is a program to look ahead at the day and to have Tim and Sean share their expertise and others about politics, strategy, tactics, communications. We hope to have a much more robust programming schedule in the coming days and weeks and months before Election Day. I'd love to do a daily show on the economic policies of the two candidates. Love to do a foreign policy show. In order to do that, we need to grow. But I don't want you to think that two-way is just about tactics, strategy, horse race, et cetera. That's not our aspiration. Our aspiration is, again, a much more robust schedule, and we're working on it. But I've heard some people raise that concern about this program. This program will always be tactics, strategy, communications, horse race, polling, the latest news, but we're going to do other shows as well. We'll be back here Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern time, same bad channel for the morning meeting. I may be back later today at a time TBD. As always, if there's breaking news, you can assume two-way will come into your inbox and invite you on my Twitter account, invite you to come join us. But for now, the next scheduled episode is Monday at 9 a.m. Grateful to you for joining, and we'll see you real soon on two-way. Thanks for watching.